Hello everyone, I'm Mike DeAngelo with That's Entertainment, and this is your video review of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood by Ubisoft Montreal. It's a rare feat to release a sequel to a game less than a year after the prior one's street date. Few developers exercise the ability, and even fewer release a product that isn't a soulless cash-out. That concept held a lot of sway when it came to the third installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise on home consoles. Combining that with the slew of marketing work that's been featured for months made Brotherhood look a little too overhyped. The news trickled in slowly. At first it seemed that the game was simply a multiplayer add-on. While that is at the core of this release, you'll find that there's more in this package than just an excuse to assassinate people over the internet. However, considering all the content in this game, is any of it actually any good? Fans of the series will be ecstatic to know that the story which seemed finished at the end of Assassin's Creed 2 was not so easily discarded after all. The tale picks up exactly where it left off, for both Desmond and Ezio. Desmond Miles is becoming the assassin his ancestors' DNA allows him to be. He and the rest of the assassins flee to Montreal to escape the sinister grasp of the Templar. Immediately, you're required to use him in the same manner that you would use Altair or Ezio. His interactions with Lucy and her friends seem more fluid this time around, and less awkward by nature. Ezio, meanwhile, is thoroughly confused after the revelations of the goddess Minerva. With warnings given to Desmond, and only confusing gibberish available to the Italian noble, Ezio is forced to flee Rome after the Pope's defeat. He and his uncle Mario escape the city together, and return to the villa, where they discuss the strange occurrences at the Vatican. Meanwhile, Abstergo are making advances of their own. With Desmond undergoing training through the use of the Animus, the idea of his capture has become all the more difficult to contemplate. The only logical move to make is to train the Templar in much the same manner. They compete in artificial assassination attempts to synchronize to the dangerous figures that Ezio has encountered, all in the hopes of becoming strong enough to take Desmond down. The story in this game is typical as far as Assassin's Creed goes. It's complex, yet well written and deeply engrossing. But that said, it may not be for everyone. In the single-player mode, you may not notice too many differences at first, but after investing a good amount of time, you'll realize that this isn't just an excuse to use the same game engine. There's enough new content available shortly after beginning, from firing cannons at invading soldiers to buying your way into the hearts of the citizens of Rome. Also on the list of things to do, create your own merry band of novice assassins, train them, and utilize them alongside you as you clean up Rome for the betterment of the people. To do this, you'll have to fight your way to the Borgia family towers and destroy them, freeing the nearby populace from their tyranny. This works the same for blacksmiths, stables, and other factions within Rome. After taking the Borgia down a peg in various locales throughout the city, you must convince the people, through whatever means are available to you, that they would be better off supporting your cause. Many of the features of the previous game make its way into this one, under more complex circumstances. Whereas in the second game you upgraded the villa, in this game you work your magic on all of Rome. The enrichment of the city has tremendous effects on how easy carrying out your missions can be. Combat is quicker paced as well, as you can do a lot more at one time, thanks to the inclusion of several new moves as well as new equipment and gadgets from Da Vinci. These additions are vastly important thanks to the presence of new enemy archetypes, like the horse-riding guards for instance. What works surprisingly well is how the single-player mode translates into multiplayer. Just like when you're playing Ezio, stealth and ingenuity are your greatest advantages. In the flagship mode, Wanted, you and a group of other assassins are given a host of targets. While a specific opponent will be your quarry, you will be the target of another player. This makes for some interesting sequences, especially considering the ramifications of breaking from your hidden ways and revealing yourself to your enemies. To aid you in taking down the opposition, Brotherhood's multiplayer functions a lot like other online forays that have enjoyed a measure of success. As you assassinate, you gain experience, which nets you new abilities, perks, and killstreaks. While none of the features in this mode are entirely new, it captures everything wonderfully. You aren't going to be too surprised by what you see in Brotherhood. It is running nearly identically to its predecessor, though that isn't a bad thing by any means. While the game doesn't stress too many new visually appealing set pieces, the content from the original more than suffices. The score is once again composed by Jesper Kyd, whose music carries certain bits of flair and a lot of emotion. The sounds themselves won't do too much to impress, only because they're so based in reality that you'll barely notice. The voiceover work takes the cake once again, with even the less utilized characters delivering their lines remarkably well.
No? Anyone?
What seemed like a tenuous way to pocket more consumer cash turns out to be an awesome adventure back into Renaissance Italy alongside Ezio Auditore, or any other would-be assassins. My apprehension was ill-founded, and I'm happy to report that this game is plenty impressive despite my original worries. There is a huge amount of value here, certainly worthy of any fans of the series. It should also be inviting enough to bring on a few more for the ride. That's Entertainment awards Assassin's Creed Brotherhood a score of 9 out of 10.